Welcome to a Modern Nonprofit podcast, powered by the Charity CFO, your compass for creative solutions in running your nonprofit. I'm Tosha Anderson, your host and guide through this nonprofit maze. From fundraising to volunteer management, we've got your back. Join us each episode for fresh, game-changing strategies that can make a real impact. Hey, nonprofit friends, welcome back to another episode of a Modern Nonprofit podcast. I'm your host, Tosha Anderson, and today we're going to be talking about auctions and fundraising events. And I'm not going to have this conversation alone, of course. I'm bringing along my new friend, Laurie Hochman, or you are the marketing director of a platform called, say it for me, Auctria. I can hardly say it, so say it for me.
How many can guess that? No, I'm kidding. Auctria.
Auctria, yes. I
You
wouldn't say
got
auction, but Auctria.
Exactly.
Auctria, Auctria. Yes.
Correct.
So while you work for this platform as a marketing director, what you're really here to talk a lot about is a lot of your experience in doing auctions or participating in auctions, helping nonprofits set up their auctions, and what you've learned from auctions. Now, Laurie, I was just saying before we started hitting record that I was actually just at an auction yesterday. Actually, I go to a lot of fundraising events. And for some of you that don't know, I've been in and around the nonprofit space. I've been saying 15 years now for a few years. So we'll go with that. I'll just keep saying 15 years for as long as my career lasts. But I've been to a lot of fundraising events, some with auctions, some without auctions. No auction is designed the same way, it feels like. I really, as the accountant in the room, I have a vested interest in the success of fundraising events because I know that helps balance budgets. And I'm always fascinated by what works and what doesn't work for different groups and settings and even the platforms that you use. There's so many different variables that I think can have an impact. So I'm excited about this conversation. I know people that are listening are going to be especially excited to hear some of the trends or some of the tips, tricks, and hacks that you might have. But before we dive in, Laurie, first of all, thank you for spending some time with us and sharing some of your words of wisdom.
My pleasure. Working with you and your team has been spot on. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's dive in.
Yeah.
Auctions, are they a thing of the past or do they still work? And if so, what are you seeing right now?
Well, you just went to one, right?
I did indeed.
They are. So event fundraising is never going to go away because people like to socialize. When they socialize, they're happy. When their endorphins are up, they're going to donate. So that whole energy absolutely will continue to happen for organizations, not for profits that are making money. The way it looks may morph a little bit here and there. And like you said, you go into a different one today, tomorrow, the next day, and there's different things happening in the room. There's different things happening online.
Yeah.
And it all depends on that organization's audience and how they're going to respond to it. And you can test things out. You can try it out. I have a lot of ideas that I'm going to throw at you or throw to your audience here, and they can grab some notes down. This, by all means, is not use every one of these at your event. Choose, cherry pick the ones that you think will be effective.
So of all the events you've been to, how much money are we talking? People that have never had an auction or are considering an auction, how much money can somebody reasonably make at an auction if this is something they're considering?
All depends on your audience. And I know I'm going to say that a lot, and don't be mad at me. But I want to give people the permission slip to try it out and know that they grow from year to year. So when you look at an organization that's been doing one for a decade and you're like, oh my gosh, they're making $400,000. We want to do that. Try it out. And they only make 20 or 30,000 and they panic. Like, oh, what did we do? You didn't do anything wrong. They've been cultivating that audience. They've been cultivating that work for that amount of time. So if you're starting off, it depends. I mean, some will start off at 30, 40, 50,000. Some will start off at 3 and 4,000. And then we regularly see auction and event fundraisers that'll do $1 million at one event. So it is a huge swath of numbers there. But there's different components that you can use that can maximize that revenue. There's online, there's in person, there's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
happy to dive into either one or
Let's
move on.
talk about that a little bit because I've seen some trends in both, like certainly online, but then more and more events are having these, you know, I'm sorry, I'm going to more, of course, now that we're, out of the COVID era, which was all of the rage of having online auctions. We're returning back to in-person events, as you had mentioned, but certainly the what would you call the sneak peek or even participating in the online auctions even prior to the event is certainly a thing that seems here to stay. I just, get notifications all the time, even if I'm not attending the event, that I can still participate in the auction. What are you seeing, or what do you think is most effective, completely online? Are you still seeing online events happen? Um, and how are you seeing the success of having these kind of online previews for which you don't even have to be part of the event itself? Like, how's that changing?
Let me just give you a little bit of history. Auctria was founded in 2011. 2012, I
Mm,
ran my first auction with them. 2014, I started working for them. The year after is when we implemented online auctions with
mhm,
Auctria. And
mhm,
myself, as an auction chair at that point in time, VP, Ways and Means, whatever they call it,
mhm,
whatever you want me to do, um, we didn't know what to do, so we're like, we tried an online auction. We had a lot of duplicate items. I live in
mhm,
Florida, and some of the theme parks would give us 4 tickets, so
mhm,
we put 2 up for online and we put 2 up in our in-person, and the ones online
mm.
did so much better than the
Really?
ones in person, so we pivoted to online, and this is way, way, way long ago. COVID
Mhm,
came, and there were lots of groups within Auctria that were doing online auctions.
mhm,
COVID came, and we had been doing online auctions for many, 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 many years. It was,
mhm,
completely stable platform, well worn. And so when groups were panicked and they had to switch, we had put in the system, um, convert everything from silent to online. And it was
mm,
literally as quick as I explained it that they were able to do it. I was doing
mm,
webinars during that time. And most of the time was walking, backing people off the ledge. It's okay. It's okay to ask for funds. People that can give, people that can't, won't, kind of thing.
mhm,
But what it did is it did bring it more, shine more light into the online auctions, and
mm,
it's given people an opportunity to try stuff out, and keep it if they want online, but in the
mhm,
room still. So, like you said, you see things, you get a lot of notifications in advance. So a good part, I'm not going to say the best, a part of it is that the
mm.
people that are in the room can bid on a mobile device, scan a QR code.
Sure.
Meanwhile, if you're at your little league game with your kid, you can
Right.
also bid on that. So you've got a
Right.
larger group of people that are bidding against it. Now, if
Mhm,
you have things in the room that you want that are specialized, or to encourage people to come to in the room and not hang out the little league game, then you may not want to put everything online. You may want to do some of them that
makes
are
sense. Like a live.
paper in the
Mhm,
room or live from the stage. So there's a huge variety of ways that you can do it. The only thing you can't do is paper and mobile. There's no way anything that lands on a
mhm,
piece of paper would land on a digital device. So it would be per item, but most of the time you'll either go all online or all on paper. It's funny, people are doing paper auctions now and silent bidding,
mhm,
and they're calling it vintage now. I'm like, vintage? Am I
mm.
that old already? Because we're going back to the in-person, to the paper pencil,
Right.
or pen and paper.
Well, and it's interesting because I've seen events. I mean, me, kind of the techie that I am, I love everything electronic. Like, let me know what's all in there, everything I bid
Mhm.
on. But I still see sometimes a bit of a hybrid where, you will purchase your ticket, all your registration is loaded on a platform. So that's kind of convenient. You can preload a credit card. So that's nice. They'll have a little bit of a silent auction selection that you can maybe bid on there. And then, of course, you have your paddles for live auction. Or even recently, I was in an event where they didn't do a full on, like, kind of fund to need, sponsor our programming, that sort of thing, with, no strings attached and no, nothing in exchange, let's say, right? Just a true fund to need. And that was still all done in paper. And I thought that was a little surprising to not have it all loaded into like one platform and make it easy. And seamless in that regard, not just from the donor participant experience, but also administratively. I thought, wow, that seems like a lot of unnecessary work. But hey, look, I'm not running this operation, so I could see where picking one platform is, either paper, stick with paper if that's what works for your audience, or moving completely to electronic, to me seems like the right answer. But
I agree with you. And you touch on a couple of things. Here I'm registering. Now I'm buying a ticket off of this platform. Now I'm
mhm,
participating in the event. And you're much better off with one platform that can streamline that. That way, the participant buys their ticket once and now they're in the system. With Auctria, we don't even need you to check in. Check in
yeah,
is completely optional. You want to check them in? Okay. They've already
right.
put their credit card on file. You can batch check out at the end. If you want to be
Mhm,
mobile, you can go up to the VIPs and check them out at their seat. We
mm,
automatically send statements, or you can trigger statements, and the MC will say from the stage, "Oh, thank you for your
yeah,
donations, your bid, blah 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 blah. We've sent you an email statement. Just click on it, double click the side of your phone, Apple Pay, Google Pay. It's moving anywhere. They're still
mhm,
enjoying. They're still
yeah,
socializing, and there your funds come in. Then your treasurer is going to be really happy because it's only one platform that they're pulling the data off of to
right.
make sure that everything squares up.
Exactly. Let's talk about, I'm always curious because I'm a numbers junkie being the accountant that I am. And I've always been fascinated with some of these kind of, let's call them like add-ons, experiences in these events. I used to work for a nonprofit. Some of you all may know that. And when we moved from a cash basis environment, all paper, to a digital platform where people can very easily buy, raffle tickets or the wine pool or the little light up bracelets and all of that. It was incredible how much more money we were able to raise when we make it very easy for people to give us money. Tell us a little bit about the types of activities that you've seen as some of these add on experiences, and what does that translate in terms of dollars, if you have any of those like statistics, on how much more money you can actually raise if you have it electronically or just easy for people to opt into.
Let me talk a little strategy first also. If you
Mm,
put these up for sale on your event website, a lot of times you're selling your tickets maybe a month in advance, 6 weeks in
mhm,
advance. People will go in, they'll purchase their ticket for $100 and some, however much that is. If you add on at that moment in time, VIP, anything sells. Put VIP in front of anything, it
mhm,
will sell. They'll have an extra bottle of wine at their table. They don't have to go up to
mm,
the wine wall. They have
that's
a
smart.
different dessert at their table. It's a different colored tablecloth. Maybe
Mm,
they get to sit with the keynote speaker. Like anything VIP sells. But if you sell it in advance, then when they walk in the door, they spent that money. They probably even
right,
paid off that credit card already,
right.
for
Right.
that month. Now they walk in clean slate. I'm starting at a zero balance. So now when you're asking them to bid on something, asking them to donate, they're like,
Mhm,
raise my paddle, because they don't really calculate in what they had spent
mhm,
already on that ticket or any of those pre-purchases. And they can pre-purchase their raffle ticket, their wine walls, like you
mm,
said, the little blinky lights where they participate in a head and tails raffle. Um,
mm,
Buy-in parties work really well. A lot of the churches and the schools, a lot of groups that are very community based, where a lot of
mm,
people know each other, they want to go to a wine tasting together. So it's, a group of 25 and they all
mm,
want to participate. So that becomes another social event that gets rolled in. Um, and then people are so creative in the ways that they even raffle off things, or the way they
mm,
run their raffles, besides pulling a
mhm,
number or doing a jumbo raffle where we're selling 100 tickets for $100. You instantly
mhm,
make a lot of cash on those. Some of them are doing kind of in an online race kind of thing. Or we had a
mm.
group, it was a boys and girls club, and you bought your ticket, and it was a little horse, and they did a little horse race across the screen, and they did it in a couple different heats, so you got to buy into each heat, and if your horse
Oh,
won,
that's
you ended up in
interesting.
the last one. So these people are vested, they're watching, they're cheering for each other instead of just
Mhm.
pulling something out of a hat. There's so many different ways. And I think you need to evaluate your items as to what's a silent item, what's a live item, and what's a
Mm.
raffle. And
Talk to us
remember, I
more about
said,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I said, these events grow from year to year in participation, but they
Mm-hmm.
also grow in year to year in revenue, because people like you, Tasha, are going through the numbers afterwards, and you're like, give
Mm-hmm.
it to me. I want to do a pivot table. I want to
Right.
evaluate this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I live in South Florida. The theme parks around here donate for us. And I was talking about that earlier, that we went online. Well, then we tried it
Mm-hmm.
again. We're like, well, you know what? What if we put this in a raffle instead of a silent item? Because those
Mm.
tickets would max out to the tippy top. Maybe they'd go over about 110% of value, never over 115% of value. But I
Mm.
put that in a raffle, 6x I got on that.
Wow. Wow.
Incredible. So then I tested. I'm like, that worked. Let me try that on this other one. And then we did that the
Mm.
following year. So we're always growing, always evaluating what's working, doing a little deeper dive into the numbers afterwards. And you try
Mm-hmm.
stuff out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Let's talk about something that I think maybe is a little controversial. I go to some events, or I have some clients that spend all year pulling together silent auction items. I mean, it's impressive. However, they'll have several staff members, a whole volunteer committee soliciting all of these silent auction items. I've seen an organization where even many of them won't even have bids. There's just so many that they won't even get bids. And we put all of this work together. In some cases, the organization will have to supplement some of these baskets and those sort of things with additional items because it doesn't naturally fit with other things. When is there a point where maybe you should forego the silent auction? Or if you insist upon having a silent auction, when is less equals more? When is that
Right. What's
appropriate?
that? What's that return of that
Yeah,
plateau
yeah.
there? So I always try to calculate, how many wallets do you have in the room? And
Mm,
then how many items do you have? And you really want to keep it below a 1-to-1 ratio, unless you've split them out really small and you have like a $20 Starbucks gift
yeah.
certificate and a $15 for the restaurant, and where you think people will bid on multiple. But that's an opportunity to go online also. And that way people can kind of go shopping. So
Hmm.
that's good if you have a lot of online items. Packaging them up is a great idea, like you
Hmm.
mentioned, putting them in a basket. But yeah, you definitely want to not go overboard and use those efforts for other areas that can give you a bigger return on your investment. For instance, sponsorships.
Yes.
Sponsorships are an enormous revenue stream for organizations. And if those people are talking to these places that are donating auction items, perhaps they do want to bump up into a sponsorship and have
Hmm.
more exposure to your audience. They're obviously donating because they want that goodwill, right? They're
Right.
obviously donating because they care about your cause. Otherwise, they could have given to 40 other organizations, but they chose you, and they
Right.
chose you for a reason. So maybe it's a sponsorship that you start talking to them about. And if you
Hmm.
haven't done sponsorships in the past, you can start small and grow them. So
Hmm.
there's definitely different ways that you can find those dollars, and put them to the best use for the time of the volunteers as well.
I'm going to say one more thing about sponsorships before I dive back into like the actual event stuff. But something that I've seen and been especially interested, again, the frugal accountant and me, I've seen a trend where nonprofits are not defaulting to giving everything but the kitchen sink away to sponsors. And what do I mean by that? Oh, for $1,000 sponsorship, you can bring 10 of your friends to our event and it's an all you can eat and drink, environment. And really, we're not making a whole lot of money on some of these sponsorships, if any at all, right? And so I've seen more and more organizations or lower price point sponsorships. Yes, you have recognition, you have shared of your logo in our publicity or media, those sort of things, but they're not necessarily attached to tickets for attendance. or just giving a whole table away. I think we have this idea, if somebody sponsors us, then we must give them a whole table. Because I'll be honest with you, as a business that gets asked regularly, can you attend an event? Can you attend an event? It's like, look, there's only so many events I can go to, so many events I want to go to. Otherwise, I would have no personal life outside of going to events, frankly. You can't attend them all. And sometimes people, I think, lose sight of the fact that businesses want to sponsor you, but they're okay with you not giving tables because then they have the obligation to of also filling those tables. So the benefit to a sponsorship with no strings attached is it's just money that you receive with no expenses going out the door. That's the best kind of contribution, you all. So let's normalize sponsorships where we're not giving everything away. I don't know if you've seen a trend in this, Laurie, as well, but
I absolutely agree with you, because who are they going to send to those tables then? Are those people going to open their wallets? Are they going to give from the heart when you put up your impact video and ask people to raise their paddle? No, they're just seat fillers. And if they're just seat fillers, then you could have filled them with somebody else. Or like you said, had less tables, less expenses. So think strategically about that. We haven't talked a whole lot about your event website, but on Auctria, when you set up your event website, you can put those sponsor on there. You can have it premier, big fat logo, and it can click through to their website. I mean, that's an incredible value. And then we also have analytics that are on our page. So you can see exactly how many clicks have come in. You don't have to attach your Google Analytics to it. It's all internal. And that information is incredibly valuable, because when your event ends, you want to go back to that sponsor. Thank you so much. This is what your dollars have helped us achieve. This is what we've done with it, or we're going to do with it. And this is how many people came and visited our website. It's, this is all part of what's the next step that you're going to be, working on and working towards. So sponsorships are incredibly, incredibly valuable. And I think you make a great point in you want to give them the value back too.
Yeah. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and talk more about the technology, because this is something else from the accounting. And again, I'm a little biased because, I'm a number cruncher and all of that. But in my experience in the past, even with when I used to run this technology platform, not your platform, but a platform for these events many, many, many years ago, it was very basic. You can load up the packages. There wasn't a lot of analysis that you can do on like what's working or what's not working. You've talked a little bit about strategy. You've talked about some of the information you can pull off of the event website, or all of these metrics that you're collecting and not even realize you're collecting. And this has been something I've been kind of preaching on for a while, from an advancement team or development team or events team, whoever it is that's putting on this kind of production, really understanding what are your expectations going into the event, and then how do you intentionally reflect on that event to see what's working or what's not working. Laurie, you mentioned a great example of like, hey, well, we made X amount of dollars on the silent auction item. There was a lot of people bidding on this, but I wonder what would happen if we move this to a live auction. Like having that sort of intentional approach to assessing the results of the events. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this platform does for the person running the events, and what kind of analysis can they draw? Maybe give us an example or a couple of people that have been able to make pretty significant changes to their events by now being empowered with actual data that they can interpret.
Here, let me give you one little anecdote. So if you go to an auction and you're writing down your bid on the silent auction paper, that information just resides in there. Most of the people will just grab down that last bidder, whoever it was, notify them. 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 people that put a bid down ahead of that. You're losing that information. Now they may come into the room, may raise a paddle. If you're doing your auction as a mobile or as an online, now the system is clocking that every single time. You're going to have all that data. And what I'd like to do, we have system emails that automatically go out that says, hey, you've been outbid. Would you like to bid again? The quicker these people can bid, the sooner those bids are going to go higher.
Mm-hmm.
What I also like to do is on the outbid notification, I always like to say on there, did bidding get too high? Would you prefer to make a donation instead?
Mm.
Of course, I was going to bid $50 on this. I love this
Mm-hmm.
organization. You know what? I don't want to spend 75 for that. I was only bidding because I like them. I will absolutely give them the dollars that I
Mm-hmm.
had earmarked in my mind for that.
Mm.
So using that data is extremely vital. And when you run these events year after year, you can pull the data, at least from Auctria, you can pull it per event, but you can pull it for all events also. So you can go back retrospectively and look at year after year after year's information so that
Mm.
you can make some decisions as well. So it, it's incredibly helpful. And then while you're doing that also, because you want longevity, you want to be able to cultivate this audience and move them along. You want them to maybe be monthly donors afterward.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want them to come to your
Mm-hmm.
next event. You want to have permission to add them to your CRM email list as they're checking out, whether they're buying a ticket or
Right.
making a donation. Right in the system, it says, would you like to be added to our email list? And you're opting in for that permission
Mm-hmm.
right then and there. And you know that building your email list is so incredibly
Yeah.
vital to the longevity of your organization.
I can just see an opportunity to really geek out on some of this data. I'm just, as you're describing this, I'm thinking of situations where, you know, if you are, the whole 80-20 principle, like 80% of your revenue is going to come probably from 20% of your auctions, I'm guessing, right? And so really narrowing down what are those items that had the most transactions. And to your point, I absolutely agree with you because I used to do the silent auction on paper where we'd only capture the last, dollar amount and you don't know. And it wasn't automatic increment. So you don't know if somebody just put $100 and there was one bidder or if there was, 10 bidders that bumped it up increments of $5, right? You don't necessarily know. It's not captured anywhere in the system. But what are those items that tend to get the most activity? Like what seem to be the most popular items? Be intentional about bringing those back next year. What items didn't have any activity? Like, let's not waste our time offering that. And really, as you had mentioned, kind of curating what is going to be, appealing to our audience. And then I'm thinking of other ideas for people that purchase raffle tickets, and you can see who are those individuals coming back year after year that are buying some of those advanced items. And I'm just thinking, I've been to so many events where it's like for $100, you can purchase a raffle ticket for an all-inclusive trip, but there's only 100 of them that are going to be sold. And I could see a world where repeat guests that come back year after year that have purchased last year, like we give them, an extra day to like buy in advance or I'm making something up, right? Some sort of loyalty club, if you will. But all of that data now you can actually be running from these systems that are now much more savvy. And I'm constantly trying to encourage our clients, if you're not working with any platform, at least consider a platform because I think people would be very surprised at the data you can collect, the experience for your guests, the ease of collecting the dollars and having it all deposited in one full swoop, rather than I went to an event yesterday. Everything's on paper envelopes and you mark like how much do you want to give, and then you have the credit cards. I can only imagine being the person trying to key in the credit card numbers that inevitably there's going to be illegible writing or a number missed, and then you got to track that person down, and how many of these envelopes are lost potentially or never actually submitted. There's just all of these administrative nuances that I think can go wrong. Not to mention if credit cards aren't there, then you got to send them an invoice, and cash is king for or any organization, and the sooner we can get paid and settle up on those balances, I think is great. Curious about your platform too, Laurie, because I noticed this with events that I've gone to recently. Is there an option for people to choose, okay, for this, couple little silent auction items that I won, I'm fine with using a credit card here. But look, there's a big fund in need. I lifted my paddle for $1,000. Like I actually need to make prior arrangements for that. More and more organizations are getting more sophisticated with their fundraising. For example, I want to give you a $10,000 funding need, but don't charge my credit card for that because I actually want to do a stock gift instead. Does your platform, is it savvy enough to do that yet? Or is that a
Yeah.
thing yet?
We need to stay in the pocket of the not-for-profit.
Yeah.
The convenience fee on credit card fees is the convenience fee. And it's, when you have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of transaction, you're trying to roll through them. Somebody wants to give you a $10,000 check, go take that $10,000 check. But
Yeah.
you know what? Record it in the system so it shows up on the thermometer, and you can show that information, that money has come in, whether
Mm-hmm.
it be, whether it be a cash or a check or donor advised funds. You can go ahead in the
Right.
system and just put them in there as other and
Right.
record it. That way, all of your reports are nice and neat and organized. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely do that. And then, I want to touch base. You were talking about, this person comes in, grabs a raffle. That's my husband. He will buy a raffle on anything. I won't go near the raffle people. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the audiences. So if you know that he comes and he buys a raffle no matter any time he comes, but then you see on
Mm-hmm.
the invitee list or the guest list that he's not coming this year, you know what?
Mm.
Pick up the phone and call him. Hey, so you're not coming to the event. Would you still like to buy a raffle ticket, especially the
Right.
donor ones for $100? So now you have
Mm-hmm.
that data, and now you can communicate with targeted messages to those people,
Mm.
and use that so that you can raise more money. And then,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of organizations will have a big marquee event, a big gala,
Mm-hmm.
the whole, steak dinner and all that fun stuff.
Sure.
But now you have that data. Now if you know you can sell off that raffle in 12 hours, 18 hours, you put it up for sale, half of them sell,
Yeah.
over online, and then the other half in person. Run that again later in the year. Do a spring one, do a fall one. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be a big full-blown event, but you can have
Mm-hmm.
these multiple flash fundraisers in between.
Mm-hmm.
And you can continue to run smaller events. At least for Auctria, our license is good for an entire year, so you can run
Yeah.
multiple events with that. So there's so many different ways that you can do things. The schools will do it. They want to fill their buckets, in the
Yeah.
fall as soon as the kids come in. But then when the kids
Mm-hmm.
are graduating, you want to sell off those graduation seats in the parking spot for next year. So you're running
Yeah.
another flash fundraiser in the springtime, or you
Mm.
have the incoming, younger grade that's coming in.
Sure.
I mean, it just goes on and on and on, of ways that you can be creative.
That reminds me of a conversation I was having recently with a client of mine. It's a new client. We're going through the onboarding process, and I think they have something like 3 or 4 different technology platforms for different fundraising initiatives. They have like 4 or 5 different payment processors. It's nuts. I was doing a whole separate conversation about technology and fundraising technology last week, actually, for one of our episodes, and we were talking. I said, look, these fundraising people or these departments, they're the big culprits for all of the tech stack that we have. When you're considering a technology partner, I think you have a great idea. Like, how can you leverage this platform more than once, more than just your dinner auction? What are some of the things that people should be considering when deciding on a partner? And how does that translate into some of the other like features or capabilities or um, additional ways that people can use your platform like throughout the year? I'm trying to think of multi-purposes, consolidating things into one, so that we don't end up with like this client with so many different platforms for different reasons.
Totally agree with you. And then you don't, organizations can either use their authorize.net or stripe.com. Stripe is pay as you go. So you're not expending anything additional than you would on any ordinary credit card fee. But I know a lot of these other platforms, that's not the case. So if you can
Mm-hmm.
limit your exposure on those, absolutely. And then when you're using Auctria, you can use it for tickets, you can use it for raffles, you can use it,
Mm-hmm.
people use it for their business partnership at the beginning of the year. They use it for
Mm-hmm.
golf tournaments in the summer. They
Mm.
use it for cornhole tournaments in the middle of the summer, for
Okay.
lemonade stands. I mean, peer-to-peer fundraising. I've
Mm.
seen restaurants battle it out for the best chili in the area. We've seen it during Christmas time, where people are going around and bidding on wreaths that artists in the area have decorated, and then not raffling those, but silent auctioning those or donating. So definitely use something that is flexible. One of the things that I like about Auctria, of course, that's where I spend all my time. Your event website is very malleable. It's very, very flexible. You can put up, take down, do separate events. All that accounting resides in one event. Then you go on to the next one. And if you want to have Christmas and holiday season on one of them, and then do a lemonade stand on the next one, and then do your gala on your next, each of them can have their own branding, they can have their own environment, but all your data stays in there for all your donors, all your guests, all your participants, and all your reporting is right there. So you absolutely, if you can streamline that into one location, then your audience becomes familiar with it also, and they become more tech savvy with it. And then they start telling other organizations about it. So much of our business is word of mouth. Oh my gosh, I was at so-and-so's event. They did an amazing job. How do I do that too? Because you want something that is going to be the least amount of friction for your guests so that they can participate.
And thinking about a tech partner too, I think about this with organizations I've worked with or events that I participated in. It feels like they change their platform like every year. And not only do you have the guest experience, but let's be honest, like the staff and the volunteers that have the learning curve of how to use the functionality of these platforms. And I would imagine best case scenario really with any technology, and I'm just as guilty of this as the next person, that really I only use a small percentage of the capabilities, and that's compounded if I'm constantly changing the different platforms. So finding a tech partner that will help you actually fully implement what you're trying to do, train you, or at least equip you with the skills to effectively, use that platform in the way that it's designed. And then hopefully a partner that you can continue year after year so that your clients, your guests, of course, are not trying to figure out this new platform in addition to, like I said, the volunteers and the staff that have to learn this year after year after year. I've seen organizations that are changing their auction platforms like every year. It's wild to me.
It is wild. And one of the things that makes me so proud of being here at Auctria, our founder and CEO is our chief development officer. And so every season we are adding different features. We are way ahead of the trends. We are always in front of it. But meanwhile, the core of Auctria stays the same. So you want to find a tech partner that is aggressive in staying on trend and bringing you strong architecture that is going to last you for years. I had referenced I started using the platform in 2012. I've since left that school. My son was in elementary school. He is now a sophomore in college, and they are still using that technology because it's continuing to grow and it's continuing to add value. We do a lot of webinars. We love talking on podcasts like this, but we do our own education also. And it's talking about strategy, but it's also talking about making the most out of the software also. Never do we charge for a webinar. Never do we even ask for your email to watch a replay. We want that information out there. I know some of these other platforms are like, oh, how much are you going to make, and give us your email address and what's your website. No, here, it's on a silver platter. You guys are doing the amazing work out there. They say all the time that their donors are the heroes, but the people listening to your podcast, they're the heroes.
Yeah, that's no truer words there. And I would encourage anyone that is either the end user for any sort of a platform, or somebody exploring a new software solution, or those that are leading organizations and are hearing the frustration from your team that this is a limitation or that's a limitation. I think one of the challenges when you start creating a tech stack that your organization is using is staying ahead of all of the product releases that platform offers. So, or you had mentioned that Auctria has constantly new releases, and I know with my firm, we have so much software, and we actually assign specific people to stay ahead of or at least up to date on the product releases. So if you're frustrated with your platform, but you're not really staying up to date on what those product releases are, not that it has to be a continuous thing, but certainly prior to that event, if we're kind of jumping ship and changing your whole platform, consider like what are new releases, especially if you're partnering with a tech platform that is constantly rolling out new releases. Go back and double check that you don't already have those features that you're just underutilizing because you didn't even know existed to begin with. I know it's different tech solutions I've used. I intentionally, Laurie, to your point, I intentionally choose providers that I know are a little bit more aggressive on the, R&D side, the product development side, that I know they tend to be a little bit more cutting edge. Yes, they're more expensive, but I know that I'm going to be able to sustain this particular platform rather than constantly having to change it because the one I chose was the least cost, but it's going to fall short on, the functionality I need. So find a provider that is, cutting edge, even if it's a little bit more expensive, something that you can grow with, but then that also requires your team, good, bad, or otherwise to stay current on those trends. So it's great that, there's webinars and other learning opportunities available that's of no cost to get up to speed on. So Laurie,
Absolutely.
people were,
I was going to say, if you poke around on the Auctria website, you'll be like, how can they have all these features on here for this pricing? Because we are pretty much the lowest in the landscape. There's a lot of people
okay.
that say free, 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 free. Free is never free. We know that, right?
Right.
Our Explorer plan, if you're making up to $10,000 on your event for the year, literally is free. It's a 1% credit card
Okay.
fee. But if you bump up to our paid plan, it's $350.
Okay.
So, and people can't believe it, but you know what? We don't have massive sales teams that are out there hammering you and asking you all these questions and, only letting you demo it for one day. We believe that software should be accessible to all not-for-profits,
Right.
and it should be full featured. Why am I going to withhold features from you when you can
Right.
use them to make money to do the amazing work?
Exactly. Well, I'm glad you bring that up because that was going to be my last question for you. People that are starting to dabble in the idea of auctions, not knowing where to get started, considering should I explore a tech platform first before I dive into this, or do I want to modernize my experience for my guests? My question is going to be, how do people at least get a glimpse into Auctria, or how to get in touch with you, or what's the best place for them to go to get introduced to the things that we've talked about in the platform we've been discussing?
Like you said, Auctria, AUCTRIA.com. All of
Okay.
our information is up on our website. You can demo Auctria for as long as you want. We're not one of these, oh, I'm going to show it to you and then I'm going to close it down in 3 days. So, go share
Yeah.
it with your friends real fast. No, try it out for as long as you want, because we know that the more information and the more hands-on you have, then you're going to be able to make a good decision for your organization. I do webinars in 3 parts. I do things that are very Auctria centric on how to maximize it. I do
Okay.
it on auction and event fundraising on how to, I bring in auctioneers, I bring in thought leaders for event, not-for-profit event planners. They'll chat with us. And then I
Okay.
also do some larger stuff. You're talking about behavioral marketing. I'm doing a behavioral marketing webinar next week. So we vary it amongst those 3 buckets so that we
Okay.
have a variety of information for you, either when you need it because we're doing them live, or you can watch those as a replay.
Okay. And all that information, all those resources and webinars go to your website,
Go to
auctria.com. Okay.
webinars and you can see upcoming. All I need is an email so I can send you a reminder, or you can watch a playback. Click past and they're all right there. Click the button
Okay.
and watch.
Awesome. Well, Laurie, this has been super helpful. I know organizations are constantly trying to stay on trend with these things, and I think all this information has been super helpful. And I think the webinars are going to be invaluable. They're free. Check them out. Thank you so much for joining us and spending your time with me today. And for anyone listening, if you found this information valuable to you, you know the drill. Subscribe, engage, interact with us in some way. That's just the way the algorithms work. It's better for you to engage with us so that other nonprofit leaders can find this information that is available. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you next episode.
That's all we have for you today. Once again, I'm Tosha Anderson with the Charity CFO, and this is a Modern Nonprofit Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to a Modern Nonprofit Podcast on all major streaming platforms so you will stay notified for when the latest episode drops, which will help you stay in the know about anything nonprofit related. Also, join our community on Facebook by searching for a Modern Nonprofit Podcast and follow us on all of our social media accounts. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.